Welcome, everyone, to this special deep dive. It's custom designed for you, our dedicated listeners who are advancing your language journey with the English Uncut channel. If you are here because you are serious about improving your fluency and, your confidence, please take a moment right now. Like this video, subscribe to the English Uncut channel, and share this with your family and friends.
Yeah, you do not want to miss out.
We really don't want anyone to miss out on these lessons. Today, we are diving deep into maybe the most frustrating challenge any language learner faces.
I think so.
That sudden paralyzing moment when your mind goes completely blank while you are speaking English. You know the feeling, the vocabulary is right there 1 second, and the next it is just
Gone. Fully inaccessible.
Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack the reasons why this happens, to look at what is going on in the brain, and, more importantly, to arm you with practical, real-life strategies.
Or conversational safety net.
Exactly. A safety net to help you stay cool, confident, and just keep that momentum going even when that blankness tries to set in.
Right.
I am thrilled to be joined today by an incredible instructor who specializes in taking language theory and translating it into, real-world application. Thank you for guiding us today.
It is my pleasure. This topic is so important, and I want to reassure everyone listening right from the start. If your mind goes blank, you are completely normal.
That is so important to hear.
It is not a sign that you are a bad learner. It is a sign that you are a highly engaged, complex thinker who is trying to do way too much at once. We are here to simplify that.
I think we need to make this relatable, right away. I have a memory of this happening to me that is just burned into my brain.
Oh, I'm sure.
I had prepared so intensely for my very first job interview in English. I rehearsed answers, practiced idioms. I felt like I was ready for anything.
You did all the work.
I did. But the moment the interviewer asked the first seemingly simple question about my career background, just everything disappeared. The panic was immediate, and I just froze.
The classic deer in the headlights.
A total deer in the headlights moment. All that vocabulary, all that preparation, it just vanished. It was like my brain decided that particular section of my memory was temporarily offline.
Right, because that intense pressure makes all the stored information feel suddenly irrelevant. It is a physical stress response.
It was awful. But somehow, in the middle of all that panic, a rehearsed, structured phrase just popped out.
Yeah.
And it saved me.
Okay.
I managed to say, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
That phrase is worth its weight in gold. That is a brilliant example of a recovery phrase.
Why is it so effective?
Because it does two things at once. First, it gets the listener to repeat the key information, which can sometimes jog your memory,
Right.
And second, and maybe more importantly, it buys you those crucial 3 or 4 seconds to just breathe and regain some cognitive control.
It really did. That phrase bought me just enough time to collect myself, to focus on her restated question, and then, recall the vocabulary you needed. I got through the interview, but that momentary mental block, it felt like an eternity.
I can certainly relate, maybe with a lower stakes version of that same panic.
Oh, yeah.
My mind went blank once when I first moved to Paris. I was in a small, a traditional French bakery, and all I wanted to do was order a single croissant. Simple, right? One word, one gesture.
Sounds like it should have been the easiest linguistic task of the day.
It should have been. But when it was my turn and the baker looked at me expectantly, I froze. I knew the word croissant, but the structure around it, the polite request, the quantity, it all just dissolved.
The pressure was on.
It was. I ended up just pointing, quite dramatically at the display case and saying the only English phrase that my panicked brain could find.
What was it?
One of those, please. I'm sure the baker was totally confused, but, they understood the message.
That story perfectly illustrates our initial takeaway here, doesn't it? This blank mind thing happens to everyone no matter how much you prepare and no matter how simple the task is. The goal of this deep dive isn't to promise you will never freeze again, but to explore the strategies to manage that unplanned break, to give you those powerful linguistic tools so you do not have to resort to just pointing.
Right, to give you back control.
Okay, so let's unpack the why. Why does our memory, which clearly holds the vocabulary and the grammar, suddenly decide to abandon us when we need it most? What is actually happening in our brains?
Well, the science really points to a powerful combination of nerves and something we call cognitive overload.
Cognitive overload.
Yes, we need to appreciate the massive immediate workload your brain takes on the second you start speaking a non-native language. It is profoundly complex work.
So what's it actually doing?
Think about it. In a fraction of a second, you are doing at least 4 huge things all at the same time. You are trying to process what the listener is saying, you are formulating a response in English, you're accessing the correct grammar and tenses, and you are trying to retrieve the specific vocabulary.
And all of that has to happen faster than the speed of a normal conversation, or you risk falling behind and, sounding hesitant.
Exactly. Even for a native speaker, if they are overly focused on structure, say writing a complex email, they can stutter or struggle. Now, add what I call the pressure multiplier.
The pressure multiplier, I like that.
When you introduce stress a job interview, a presentation, or just trying to sound intelligent, the brain's emergency system kicks in.
And that's when things shut down.
It is. I like to use the analogy of a computer. Your brain is a supercomputer, right? But imagine all the critical language functions, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, as separate programs running at the same time, each one demanding a lot of bandwidth.
That is already a heavy load to carry.
It is. Now, when the pressure app, that stress and anxiety program, suddenly activates, it acts like a massive virus or a denial of service attack. It does not delete the other programs. It just hijacks the central processing unit, the CPU.
So it's reallocating resources.
The brain reallocates its resources away from the expensive task of language retrieval and toward the primitive, panic-based fight-or-flight response.
So the vocabulary is still there, stored on the hard drive, but the access pathway, the system that retrieves the word in real time, is blocked by that flood of stress forming.
Precisely. The system just locks down. And this brings us to a key concept from second language acquisition theory. It's called the effective filter hypothesis.
Okay, let's elaborate on that for our listeners. What exactly is the effective filter?
The effective filter refers to this invisible psychological barrier that gets created by negative emotional responses. So, primarily anxiety, low motivation, or a lack of self-confidence.
An emotional wall.
It is. When your anxiety is low, the filter is down, and you can easily access and use the language you have stored. The words flow freely. But when you are in a high-pressure situation, the effective filter goes up. This emotional wall prevents the input, the listening, from reaching the part of your brain responsible for acquisition, and at the same time, it blocks the output. It keeps the words you know trapped inside your memory.
So if I know the word negotiation, but I'm incredibly stressed out in a business meeting, the effective filter is basically saying, nope, not safe to use this word right now, and it just locks it away.
That is exactly right. The fear of making a mistake, that fear of the social consequence of an error, is what activates that filter. The brain prioritizes emotional safety over linguistic fluency.
That is a critical insight because it reframes the blank mind not as a lack of knowledge, but as an emotional traffic jam.
And that reframing is key to the solution. If the problem is emotional and cognitive overload, then the solution has to involve cognitive rest and emotional regulation. We have to give the brain a structured way to hit pause, lower that effective filter, and regain access.
Right. We could also use a simpler, more visual analogy maybe, like juggling.
Oh, that's a good one.
Think about juggling too many balls at once. Each ball is a component. Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, the content of what you want to say. You might manage 3 balls just fine.
Right. But when you throw in the 4th or 5th ball, the pressure and the anxiety, you become acutely aware of the risk of dropping them. That over-awareness, that self-monitoring, is what causes the stumble. You tighten up, your rhythm breaks, and eventually the balls hit the ground. Our goal for the rest of this deep dive is to give you tools to, drop a ball gracefully, or even better, just pause the juggling act for a moment.
Knowing that panic is what causes the crash, our first line of defense has to be purely practical, right? Preparing those ready-made go-to phrases in advance. These are like your conversational airbags.
Absolutely. We call them structural phrases or boundary markers. They are sentences you can memorize, practice, and just deploy instantly.
And what do they do for you?
They keep the conversational momentum going, they signal respect to the listener, and they buy you those invaluable seconds for thought.
And crucially, because they are memorized and practiced structural units, they can bypass that temporary cognitive block.
Exactly. They're easy to retrieve because they're emotional safety nets, not complex vocabulary.
So let's analyze some of these phrases. And for our English Uncut listeners, we are going to focus on the slow, clear, and accurate pronunciation of these key words. How you deliver them really convey confidence.
Right.
Let's start with the category that saved me, time buyers.
A simple, polite classic is, Let me think about that for a moment.
Notice the deliberate pace there.
Yeah.
Let me think about that for a moment. The usage here is intentional. You are signaling respect for the question by taking time to formulate a considered answer. You appear thoughtful, not panicked.
Mm-hmm. Another time buyer, maybe a little more formal, is, that is an interesting question. I need a second to gather my thoughts. This is perfect for, academic or professional settings.
Let's hear that one again slowly. That is an interesting question. I need a sec. Gather my thoughts. That buys you about 4 seconds minimum, and it frames your pause as preparation for a really eloquent response.
It does.
Okay, the second vital category of these safety net phrases is clarification phrases. This is for when you freeze, because you did not quite understand a key word in the speaker's original question.
You have to feel empowered to ask the listener to repeat or rephrase. You can try. Could you rephrase that? I want to make sure I understand the main point.
Slow and clear. Could.you.rephrase.that. I want
Okay.
make sure I understand the main point. This is so diplomatic, isn't it?
Well,
You are taking responsibility for the communication, not blaming the speaker for being unclear.
Exactly. Or if you need them to slow down, which is perfectly acceptable. I apologize, but could you please speak a little more slowly? Again, clear, polite, and assertive.
The third crucial category is paraphrasing and simplification. These phrases act as the introduction to your improvised response, when that perfect word is just gone.
Yes. If you realize the specific vocabulary is inaccessible, you can transition into a simplified response with, I'm not sure how to say this precisely, but generally speaking.
I love that one. Let's break it down. I'm not sure how to say this precisely, but generally speaking. The usage is fantastic because you are managing expectations. You're telling the listener, I am about to use simpler terms, which instantly lowers your own internal pressure.
Or even more direct. I can't recall the specific term right now, so let me describe the idea for you. This prepares them for descriptive language.
Let's analyze a quick application scenario. Imagine you were in a meeting and someone asks, what are the synergies between Project Alpha and Project Beta? And you just freeze on that word, synergies.
Right, it's a bit of jargon.
Instead of silence, you activate a safety phrase. You could even combine two categories. You could say, that is a great question. Let me take a second to gather my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could add, I can't recall the specific term right now, so let me describe the idea for you. I believe the main benefit is how they work together to achieve X.
C. You avoided the blank moment completely. You used those structural phrases to control the pacing, signal confidence, and you successfully delivered the message using words you could access.
The key takeaway here seems to be practice.
It is all practice. Practice saying these 7 or 8 phrases aloud with perfect, slow, clear pronunciation until they become completely automatic. When panic hits, you do not want to think of the phrase. You want it to just flow out naturally.
Now that we have our emergency brake phrases ready, how do we prevent the conversational car from crashing in the first place? It has to come down to proactive fluency building, right? Through low-pressure repetition.
That is exactly right. If the effective filter is raised by judgment and stress, the solution is to practice where judgment is non-existent.
Okay.
This allows your brain to focus purely on forming sentences, developing that muscle memory, without the cognitive tax of anxiety.
The beauty of low-pressure practice is that you can start today entirely alone with zero risk of criticism. These are the repetition drills that really solidify structure and those retrieval paths in your brain. Let's run through some specific, immediate techniques our learners can start implementing.
Okay, the first one is simple. Talking to yourself in the mirror. This helps you monitor not just your speech, but also your nonverbal communication, your eye contact, your facial expressions. You are giving yourself feedback in a totally safe setting.
A second, more fun one. Chatting with a pet.
I love that one.
Pets are completely non-judgmental listeners, and speaking to them helps normalize the sound of your own voice speaking English.
It does.
But my personal favorite low-pressure technique, which feels incredibly effective for solidifying grammar, is narrating your day. You just speak aloud about what you are doing in the present moment.
This technique forces you to use fundamental structures, like the present continuous tense and immediate common vocabulary. Let's look at some examples, but this time let's focus on the flow and the intonation, not just the individual words. We want to practice linking them together smoothly.
Right. For example, as I am making coffee, I can practice saying, I'm making breakfast now.
And notice how that flows. I'm making breakfast now. You are practicing contractions and linking that simple action to the time.
Or when I'm planning my day, I could say, I need to check my emails and prepare for the meeting.
Great. This forces you to use common verbs and professional nouns in a natural sentence structure. I need to check my emails and prepare for the meeting. You are reinforcing the link between the idea and the immediate sentence.
And as I leave the house, now I'm locking the door and heading outside.
This repetitive, low-stakes narration builds so much confidence because you are successfully completing English sentences hundreds of times a day without the pressure of a listener waiting for a reply.
Did you ever do this?
Constantly. I did this all the time when I was learning Italian. I'd be saying things like, I'm opening the door, or I'm waiting for the bus. It felt a little ridiculous at first, but the repetition strengthened my ability to form complete sentences quickly. It really reduced my hesitation when I had to speak to a native speaker.
So that structural muscle memory is what prevents the blank mind. If the structure is automatic, your brain only has to search for the specific noun, which reduces the cognitive load.
Exactly. And this leads perfectly to the other essential confidence builder, shadowing exercises.
Let's define shadowing properly for the English Uncut audience. What is it?
Shadowing means listening to a native speaker, maybe from a news broadcast, a documentary, or a TV show, and repeating what they say as closely as possible, acting as their verbal shadow. You're just trailing half a second behind them.
So what should a learner concentrate on during shadowing? Is it just about repeating the words?
No, the real focus is on the musicality of the language.
The music of it.
Yes. Focus on intonation, where the voice rises and falls. Focus on stress, which words or syllables are emphasized. And, critically, focus on linking sounds, how native speakers blend words together, for instance, turning did you into didja.
So this is where we move beyond simple comprehension and start internalizing the rhythm that makes speech sound so natural.
Exactly. When you internalize that rhythm, your brain spends less time calculating the appropriate speed and pitch, which further reduces that cognitive load in a real-time conversation.
So for application, if you are watching a favorite English TV show, you could try picking a character with a clear speaking style.
And mimic everything they say, the pauses, the speed, the emotion.
Everything.
I often recommend using interviews rather than highly scripted drama, actually, because the pauses and conversational fillers are more authentic. But if you want to use scripted content, I remember I spent hours trying to mimic Joey from Friends.
Of course.
Because his famous line, "How you doing?" is just a masterclass in relaxed American intonation. It's not just the words, it's that slow, rising inflection that makes it so iconic. Shadowing that one phrase hundreds of times helped me internalize the casual rhythm of American English.
It sounds fun, and it works because it takes the pressure off creating new sentences and puts the focus purely on mastering the delivery. And that's key to overcoming the hesitation that leads to the blank mind.
For sure.
Okay, let's shift focus now from structural preparation to a really critical mindset change. Our next essential tip is focus on the message, not the exact words.
This is perhaps the hardest habit for an advanced learner to break. There is this expectation that you must find the perfect, most accurate, or most sophisticated word. But that search for perfection is often what triggers the cognitive block.
It is a mental trap, isn't it? The moment you start searching for that optimal word, that highly specific noun or complex adjective, your brain slows down, the pressure rises, and that's when the system crashes.
We need to remember that the primary goal is simply to get your message across.
Right.
Most listeners care deeply about the content of your message and very little about whether your vocabulary selection is technically flawless. Successful communication trumps linguistic perfection every single time.
So let's analyze how to improvise when that specific word is forgotten. This is a skill called circumlocution, right? Talking around the word you do not know.
Yes, and it uses your surrounding, readily available vocabulary to save you.
Let's go back to the kitchen. You are telling a story, and you completely forget the word refrigerator. You freeze because you do not have that specific name.
So instead of stopping, you describe the function. You rely on simple, accessible words. You could say, the large white machine in the kitchen that keeps food cold.
That usage is perfect. You describe the function when the name failed you. The large.white machine.in.the kitchen. That keeps.food.cold. Every one of those words is simple, and the listener knows exactly what you mean. The conversation just flows without interruption.
Exactly.
What if you forget a specific, more technical verb like procrastinate? You are talking to your boss and you just can't remember it.
You describe the action. You could say, I put off doing the report until the very last minute, or I kept delaying starting the project. You are exchanging a complex, high-demand word for a simple phrase using common, lower-demand verbs.
You know, I think this raises an interesting point, though. Improvisation sounds tiring. If I am constantly having to describe words instead of just saying them, won't that increase my overall cognitive fatigue, making the next blank moment more likely?
That is a legitimate concern. And initially, yes, it does require some mental effort. But think of it as building a muscle. Every time you successfully improvise, you are teaching your brain a new low-stress retrieval route. Eventually, those descriptive phrases become automatic safety pathways. It is an investment in flexibility.
That moves us perfectly into our next essential tip, which is the foundational tool for managing panic itself. Breathe and slow down.
When the blank mind hits, the natural physiological response is to rush. You feel embarrassed, you want to fill the silence, and you speak faster just to get the difficult moment over with.
Right.
But rushing just accelerates the cognitive overload because you are demanding that your brain process grammar and retrieve vocabulary faster than it can actually manage.
So what is the benefit of intentionally slowing down?
Intentional pausing reduces physical pressure. It literally can reduce your heart rate, and it provides vital time for your working memory to retrieve the next necessary word. That pause is a mental reset button. It lowers the affective filter.
Let's apply this to a high-stakes scenario like a quarterly presentation. You are discussing financial results, and you lose your train of thought completely.
The instinct might be to stammer and apologize, but the best action is the opposite. You pause. You take a deep, conscious breath. You can look briefly at your notes, and then you continue your thoughts slowly and deliberately. And what's fascinating is that the audience perceives this pause so differently than you do. You perceive it as failure or hesitation. The audience perceives it as a sign of thoughtful consideration.
That's a great insight.
A deliberate speaker, even one who is pausing, commands more attention and respect than a rushed, stammering speaker.
So slowing down not only helps your brain retrieve the information, but it also enhances the clarity of your message. You're controlling the pace, and control combats panic. Let's focus now on managing the inevitable errors that come with speaking a new language. Our next emotional tool is use humor to diffuse.
We have to accept that mistakes are not failures. They are data points. They are proof that you are actively engaging with the language. But if you let a mistake derail you, it raises that affective filter instantly.
Using humor when you mess up really shows confidence, doesn't it? It tells the listener, I noticed that error, but it does not bother me, and it should not bother you.
Precisely. Let's analyze a very common error for English learners. Mixing up desert, the sandy place, and dessert, the sweet treat.
Oh, a classic.
Say you accidentally tell someone, I am going to eat a huge dessert after dinner.
If panic sets in, you might just stop completely or become silent. But if you lean into the humor, you could acknowledge the mix-up playfully. You could say something like, wait, did I say desert? Well, I guess I was craving sand instead of cake. Let's stick with the cake.
The usage there is key. You use irony to acknowledge and immediately dismiss the error. Well, I guess I was craving .sand instead of .cake. This makes you instantly more approachable, it reduces the tension, and most native speakers will really appreciate the effort and the humor.
I think this is where cultural context is important too. In many English-speaking cultures, that kind of self-deprecating humor about mistakes is very common and even endearing.
Oh, absolutely. It shows vulnerability and resilience. Plus, let's be honest, native speakers make funny verbal mistakes all the time. No one expects perfection. And if you signal that you are okay with the mistake, the listener is likely to help you or just let it pass without any consequence.
So moving on to another powerful mental preparation tool. Visualize success.
Visualization is mental rehearsal. Before a high-pressure conversation, a phone call, a job interview, a presentation, take 5 minutes to mentally picture yourself confidently having that conversation.
What should the listener focus on during this visualization? Is it just imagining saying the right words?
You should go deeper than that. Visualize the feeling of fluency. Picture the successful retrieval of words, the smooth transition between ideas, and the positive, engaged reaction of your audience.
So what's the neurological benefit?
You are running the successful program in your mind before the live performance. This significantly reduces the novelty of the situation. Your mind has already experienced the success scenario, which makes it less likely that the anxiety response, the blank mind, will hijack your cognitive resources when the actual event occurs. It is preparatory work that lowers your internal stress baseline.
That brings us to foundational preparation, which ultimately makes every other tip easier. Tip number 8, expand your accessible vocabulary.
This is just non-negotiable. A major long-term reason for the mind going blank is simply a lack of necessary vocabulary, or more often, a lack of accessible synonyms for the word that is currently blocked.
Right, so the more words you know and the more synonyms you have stored, the less likely you are to get stuck searching for that one single perfect term.
Fluency is often built on redundancy, having multiple ways to express the same idea.
Let's use a highly professional application example. If you are discussing business strategy, you need multiple ways to discuss outcomes. So instead of only knowing the word profit, you also need revenue, gains, earnings, and return on investment.
Exactly. That way, if profitability disappears from your memory in a high-pressure pitch, you can seamlessly switch to, "We anticipate strong revenue," or "The earnings look positive." You will not get stuck staring into the void.
And one of the most effective ways to build this vocabulary is through regular reading, right?
Yes, it does not have to be academic journals. It can be short news articles, blog posts about your interests, even fiction. Reading provides vocabulary with context.
And context is the key for retention. But reading alone is not enough, is it?
No. You must bridge the gap between passive recognition, which is reading, and active production, which is speaking. As soon as you encounter a new high-value word, you have to commit to using it immediately.
Okay, so if I read the word negotiation in a news article today, how do I apply that immediately?
You build quick sentences. You practice saying aloud, even just to yourself, 5 times that day. "I have a negotiation with a client tomorrow. That negotiation will be difficult." This process is called retrieval practice, and it moves the word from your passive memory store into your active, readily accessible speaking vocabulary.
Okay, so we're going to take that vocabulary advice and expand it into what you call a game-changing strategy for reducing the blank mind syndrome. Tip number 9, group new words into themes.
Yes, this is so important.
Tell us why this is more effective than the traditional method of just memorizing long, random lists of words from a dictionary or an app.
It's all about cognitive efficiency. Your brain doesn't store information in random lists. It stores it in organized networks based on context and relevance. When you learn words by theme, you are essentially creating a dedicated, easily accessible mental file folder.
Ah, I see.
So when you open the travel folder in your mind, all the related words are immediately active and ready to use.
So the search process is faster and less likely to get blocked. Let's look at some specific practical themes.
Okay, let's sit at the theme of technology and digital life. Instead of just learning the word computer, you focus on related verbs and nouns: download, upload, bandwidth, glitch, and interface.
And once you have those 5 or 6 words, the practice involves discussing them together. So you could tell a story like, "The bandwidth was slow, and I couldn't download the file because of a software glitch."
That immediately uses the words in a contextually linked sentence, which makes them stick. Now let's try the theme of health and wellness. You would focus on words like symptoms, diagnosis, treatment, rehabilitation, and fatigue.
And the practice here involves discussing a health routine or describing a common ailment. "I am experiencing severe fatigue, so I need to schedule a diagnosis with my doctor."
Exactly. Let's consider a professional theme, like project management. You could learn milestone, deadline, scope, deliverable, and stakeholder.
And the practical application would be something like, "The project hit its first milestone, but we need to manage the scope before the final deliverable date to satisfy the stakeholders."
Right. And the advantages of this thematic learning are threefold. This is why it is so effective.
Okay.
First, you get improved memory retention. Because the words are inherently related, they reinforce each other in your memory. You are using context to help you recall.
Second, increased conversational utility. You increase the likelihood of using those words together naturally because they belong in the same conversation. This makes your speech sound more authentic and structured.
And third, it makes the learning process much more engaging. You are not just rote memorizing. You are building functional language tools that are relevant to your life and your interests.
Ultimately, the message here is so clear. Fluency is not about finding the perfect single word. It's about having a deep, accessible reservoir of words and synonyms grouped into these mental files.
The more words you have ready and available, the less likely your mind will go blank when you are faced with a real-time conversation challenge.
This has been an incredibly essential deep dive. You've given us concrete tools for a challenge that affects every single person learning English.
I hope so.
To all our listeners on English Uncut, please internalize this final message. If your mind goes blank, do not panic. You have the tools to manage it now.
This is a shared human experience. Native speakers frequently lose words, especially when we were tired or stressed or distracted. The key is recognizing that blank moment as a signal to employ one of your safety nets,
Your time-buying phrase.
your breathing technique, or your improvisation skill.
Remember, speaking a new language is absolutely a journey, and that journey is filled with hills and plateaus.
Yeah.
Every conversation you start, regardless of whether you stumble or soar, is a critical step in the right direction.
Be incredibly kind to yourself.
Please, do not let one moment of freezing derail the entire monumental process of learning a new language.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider today. It is one that challenges the very fear that causes the blank mind in the first place.
What is it?
If mistakes are inevitable, and they are, why not embrace them as your most effective, fastest teachers?
Do not be afraid to make mistakes. They are literally the data points your brain needs to rewire itself for better fluency. Embrace them, laugh them off, and learn from them.
We hope these 9 comprehensive tips help you gain complete control the next time your mind tries to check out while speaking English. And we would genuinely love to hear from you. What are the specific tips or phrases that have helped you?
Yes, share your thoughts and your personal strategies with us in the comments or on social media. We are a community on this language journey together, and your personal experiences might be the exact lifeline someone else needs to hear right now.
Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive. Keep practicing, stay confident, and remember that you now have a comprehensive toolkit to manage that cognitive block.
Until next time, take care and keep speaking English. Your progress does not end here. To continue advancing your English skills and keep that fluency momentum going, be sure to click on the next video or explore the additional lessons we have thoughtfully selected for you on English Uncut. We will see you soon.